Okay, it's showtime. This is WA6ED for the SOARA 10-meter net. It's open to all licensed amateurs, and especially technicians, because we're on 10 meters. If you have a technician license, you can get on the radio and say hi to everybody. Band conditions on 40 meters was particularly bad. It was starting to get a little bit better when I moved over to 10 for this net. But if you'd like to join this net, this is WA6ED, please call now. Well, I think it's 9 o'clock and everybody's sleeping in or they're on other nets. So I'll hang out here for a little while and see if anybody wants to join the SOARA 10-meter net, WA6ED.
KN6HI, Steve.
Well, good morning, Steve. You're the first one, and I can hear you quite well, but I could hear you well on 40 as well. How you doing this morning?
Doing pretty good. Yeah, so I haven't retuned for this, but it looks like this thing's reporting. I'm 1.5. That's not too bad. So anyway, doing great. I meant to mention I took a whole bunch of data points last week on the 40-meter net. I had my CO2 monitor, and I was taking time and CO2 levels with the windows closed. And you got about 15-20 minutes before it really shoots up. And I was hitting about 3,000 parts per million. And then I opened the windows, and it came back down. It took a little while for it to come back down, too. So, that's, sitting in the truck with the windows up is not a great idea, CO2-wise. Back to you.
Yeah, I hear you. So let's see if there's anybody else that can wants to join the net. This is the SOARA 10-meter net. If you'd like to join, this is WA6ED. Please call now.
W6EDT.
Well, good morning, Dale. I could hear you pretty well on 40 as well. Why don't you go ahead and take a turn? We have Steve, KN6HI, and then over to you, Dale, WA6ED.
Well, thanks, Ed. Yeah, I should be doing okay. I'm about 700 watts or so. It's 40 was challenging short distances, although, you were legible and so was everybody else. And here it's the same thing as usual. I can copy you on the vertical but not on the horizontal dipole very well, which makes sense because of the polarization attenuation. I don't know if you heard my comment on the 40-meter net or whether you had walked away, but the Heltec, the Meshcore hardware, or Mesh hardware in general, I guess, is kind of confusing. You would think 4 is better than 3, but it turns out, and it depends on your value of better, but it turns out that those V3 and V4 are ESP32 based, and they are considerably power inefficient, especially the V4 because it has a higher output power, supposedly. The V2, the T114s, are Nordic based, which are ARM cores, and really use a lot less power. 20 microamps or something like that in standby, or maybe it's 8 microamps in standby. While you just you're running the receiver. So anyway, it's weird. He's not at all clear. The good news is the hardware is not expensive. So, it's easy enough to buy the good stuff and, or the stuff that meets your needs, maybe that's a better way to put it. The V2 in and of itself is a nice little piece, but it's, I had one fail and actually, caught fire on me. The battery wiring caught fire. I'm not sure what that was about. I'm not sure. But the unit itself had been acting up prior to that, not transmitting and things like that. So with that, I'll pass it back to you. Although I suspect you want me to pass it to Steve, but I'll send it to WA6ED just for clarification.
Okay, this is WA6ED for the SOARA 10-meter net. If anybody would like to join the net, please call now. Okay, well, thanks for the clarification on the V2, V3, and V4. Yeah, catching on fire, not a good idea. Okay, let's hand it over to Steve, KN6HI, and then you can hand it over to Dale. Take it away, Steve, WA6ED.
Thanks, Ed. This is Steve, KN6HI. Wow, so maybe I should get into that, the mesh, I think you're talking about mesh radios. Sounds like a lot of people are having fun with that. And it's just absolutely taken off, in my perception. So maybe I'll be, if I'm shopping for one, maybe I'm looking for a version 2, not a V4. Or a version 3, I'm sorry, version 3, not a V4. Anyway, got enough going on as is, though. But, I meant to ask you, Dale, about what are your plans for CW Academy? Are you going to take the next course, or what did you think of the course? I'm signed up again, so I'm going to be taking another round this May coming up, and I'm going to try to hopefully it's like chemistry, right? The activation energy. You got to get over that hump before anything starts happening, and I think I might be just at the cusp of that. And I'm able to kind of do a few things with CW, but it's been a climb. It's been an effort, and I guess you got to keep it up too. And I've been a little bit reticent to get on the air. That's what I need to do. So, and I'm all stoked. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, over to you, Dale. This is Steve KN6HI.
Well, thank you, Steve. And yeah, I am. So they recommend. I definitely am going to continue. They do not recommend taking the beginner class again unless you just weren't able to attend very many sessions, in which case you didn't achieve It's a minimal objective is pretty easy to change. I shouldn't say pretty easy. It's hard work, but it's achievable. And so yeah, I'm going to take the fundamentals class. I'm having a little bit of trouble making time without the motivation of having to attend a class and show people how good or bad I am. It's mostly bad, but I am trying to practice a little bit every day, at least sending, just to keep it in my mind. And I need to do more. I need to get into the instant character recognition phase of the receive learning. I've got a couple months yet, or a month and a half, I guess. But I better get going, or it's not going to work out real well for me. No real loss, except I just won't achieve the objectives. And I'm with you. I'm a little reticent to get on the air. Although, from what I can tell, if I just am chasing podocytes, it's real easy, because all I have to do is be able to copy their call. And technically, I don't even have to be able to do that, but I have to at least understand enough to know when they're finished transmitting, and then I just need to send my call. And at the end of the day, if you just do that, you're going to be in their log, and you'll get credit. And you've achieved your objective. You've made a contact with CW. So that's something to think about. And as far as the mesh stuff goes, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It is. It has utility, but the utility is still increasing. Right now, the utility is not completely perfect. So the goal is that you could give one of these radios to a non-licensed person, because they operate on the ISM band, and then your family or whatever group could communicate even if the power was out. There was no cell service and things like that. I mean, that's the selling point. And you want a Heltec V2 T114. That's using the Nordic chip. Anyway, back to Ed, W6EDT.
WA6ED. Tongue-tied here. Anyway, let's see if there's anybody else out there that would like to join the SOARA 10-meter net. If you'd like to join, please call now. Well, earlier, Richard RBS, K6RBS got on. We were talking about Pink Floyd. That was fun. And then, on the V4, it's around 0.6 watts. So, versus about 0.15 on V3. So if you were going to do a repeater, I'd do V4, but I've been reading about or seeing messages of people talking about transmitting 1 watt. So I'd have to look and see what the limits are and the requirements are on that band, but I'd think 1 watt would be better. What I just did is bought some Musi higher gain antennas. I think mine are right now about, I think it's 3 dBi or something like that. And then the Musis are a lot longer, and I think they're around 6 dBi. So I figure I'd focus on the antenna and not spend any more money on the boards for now, and then see and play with it, and then try to educate myself. I've spent enough money on it. Spend a couple $100. That's enough for short term. And then I sent a message out on the SOARA channel, and no response this morning. And I don't know if I'm getting out at home or not. I was getting out yesterday at SOARA Saturday, but I think the range was really close. So that probably worked okay, but not too sure about my home location right now. And where I have the radio and antenna is right next to my wire rack for my HF gear. Probably not the best spot in the world to put it. So I'll have to figure out a way to power it. Yeah, Steve, I would say light touch right now. The public stuff, there's a lot of chatter going on, but I put a message out on the public, and nobody answered me whether I was getting out or not. So I'm not sure what's going on. All right, over to Steve, KN6HI, WA6ED.
All right, thanks, Ed. Steve, KN6HI here. I guess maybe I should look at some things to get educated on what it really is, because it seems like, all right, this is what I think it is, with my very limited information. Very, very low power transceivers, digital stuff that you can send like text, and it's the next unit that's near you, could be somebody's and a couple houses away, takes that and acts like a repeater and retransmits it. If that's the case, then you're using their battery power, or, in the case of like a power failure, a statewide power failure, wouldn't you run out of repeating devices so your range would be pretty much limited to whatever your little transceiver could do as soon as everybody else shuts down, or their batteries run out? That's a question. So anyway, other than that, let's see. I guess I'll just turn it over to Dale. W6EDT. This is Steve, KN6HI.
Oh, thank you, Steve. And so Meshcore is, like you say, relatively low power. I think Ed, the rule for the ISM band is 1 watt, and I think it's TEP and not ERP, but I could be wrong. I'd have to go look to be sure. I have an antenna up on the roof now. It's 5.8 dBi, I think, and using the T114 to drive it, but not as a repeater. And I just sent you a message on the SOARA channel. If you got it, that would tell you your radio was working. Let's see. Oh, yes, Steve. So the deal with the repeaters is that it's kind of a good engineering practice standard that they're trying to, nobody can enforce it, of course, but all the repeaters are supposed to be backed up by solar. And because the power is so low, it doesn't take much of a solar panel, a 6-watt solar panel operated at 100% duty cycle. With plenty to spare, and the batteries typically are big enough to allow it to ride through an overnight, no sun kind of thing. But it doesn't take much battery to do that, by the way, if you're using a relatively low power radio. So it's, I don't know if it'll in practice meet that promise of being able to operate when there's no power, but it is attractive to people to own their own infrastructure and kind of, have the idea that maybe there's a chance that they can communicate with family when the poop hits the fan kind of thing. So I wouldn't depend on it for life safety. It's not quite there or anywhere close, but it's another means of communication, and I suspect as it gets better adoption, it'll work fine. One sort of minor little, I won't say danger, there is a technology called Meshtastic, and they use this different routing strategy, which, as everybody kind of expected who knew anything about routing, it started to fail spectacularly as soon as it scaled. And Meshcore solves that problem to some degree by not making every single radio a repeater. Only repeaters are repeaters. But if you have too many repeaters, then you end up with the same problem. Plus, it's inefficient the first time you send something. If I send something to Ed through his actual radio, then I will, live transmission Ed will flood the whole network looking for a path. And when Ed responds, then that path will be remembered for a while. But of course, that too doesn't scale very well. Anyway, back to Ed, W6EDT.
WA6ED. If you go up on the SOARA website, there was a presentation, I think it was in January, a month or two ago, on LoRa. And there's a link to West Coast Mesh, or WCMesh.com. And at the very top, there's a click for setup information in your area. You really want to click on that, Steve, if you're going to buy some radios. And my recommendation is buy a couple of the cheapest ones that you can tether to your phone or iPad or Android or whatever and play around with it. But you may want two radios. And what I'm thinking of doing is setting up a repeater at home and another one at work, mainly because I could put one on the roof at work, but and then set them up with solar panels and stuff. But that's probably going to be a few months out because repeaters are about $100 plus each, because you got to buy a little solar panel and batteries and put it in a case and all this other stuff. There's some low-cost stuff that you can do, but it's not very high power. I took a picture of what Dan had for the, I think it's Temple Hill, and it was pretty hardcore with filters and all kinds of neat stuff in there. And I'm still digesting that information. So, but you can get a couple of cheapy ones, the V3 or the V2. It just depends on what power output you want. The V3 seems to be working just fine for me so far. So far, so good. It's just that the V4 was a new version, and Dale is right. It sucks more power, and but you get 4 times the RF output, which you're going to pay for that. But you might be able to turn it down from 28 dBm to 22 dBm on the V4 and not suck so much power. So it depends on what you want to do, but I wouldn't jump in head first. I'd do some more research. I think I should have did a little bit more research before I started buying stuff. All right, let's see if anybody else wants to join the net. This is WA6ED for the SOARA 10-meter net. If you'd like to join, please call now. Okay, I guess it's just the 3 of us for today. I did order some Musi antennas. Dan had one of those yesterday at SOARA Saturday, so we'll see how much better that helps. I figure even if the power is 4 times down what I could have got for about the same amount of money, at least I can put a higher gain antenna on it, and I'll want the higher gain antenna anyway. So I figured that was pretty safe to buy. So I bought 4 of them. So I'll probably have 1 extra. If somebody needs an antenna, let me know. But I bought the 4-pack, and I only need 3 for what I'm thinking about right now. Okay, let's get it over to Steve, KN6HI. Take it away, Steve, WA6ED.
Okay, thanks, Ed. This is Steve, KN6HI, and all right, so I'm taking a lot of notes here. So as I usually do on our 40 and 10-meter nets. So we're talking about Meshcore, and I wouldn't have known the difference between that and Meshtastic. So good enough that I'm glad I'm on the net here. So let's see. These antennas, I imagine, are omnidirectional, but I suppose you could build a Yagi or something like that and point it if there's a particular station that you're always going through that part of your mesh. And I imagine, that Dale's comment about flooding the whole network and then finding a path to the ultimate station that you're trying to get to. It's making sense to me. I can imagine that it's looking for a path that it can get and make the whole trip. And I suppose it keeps trying until it's successful. Anyway, let's see. And then the WCmesh.com, I'm going to check that out. And I'll be careful about not jumping into things too quick. I guess the only reason you're saying that is because don't spend a lot of money on it. Maybe it's not that expensive to begin with, I'm hoping or assuming. And although there might be other aspects to it. Is there a security aspect? Is there a concern there or anything like that? So let's see. And you get 2 radios, home and work. Well, I don't have work, so retired. And so maybe it's home and somebody else's home. Setting stuff up with solar and batteries sounds like a lot of fun, though. I'd really kind of get into that. That would be very cool. So that's about all I got to say here, and so I'll pass it on to Dale. W6EDT, this is Steve, KN6HI.
Well, thanks, Steve. And so the traffic on the network is encrypted. Meshtastic has the same approach. This is essentially LoRa as a transport, so LoRa's traffic is encrypted as well. And so each device has a public and private key. If I want to send stuff to you, you need to send me your public key so I can encrypt the traffic to that with that public key, and then only you can read it. And groups have a sort of a commonly agreed upon, they're called channels, but they basically are a publicly agreed upon, or a public key that is known to more people. And so groups are inherently not as secure because more than one person knows the secret, but it's not a big problem in practice because other than there's no way to find the public key of a channel without being told it. There's no scanning approach because, typical public-private key kinds of stuff. You can't really reverse it very easily for obvious reasons. Yeah, I don't know. I agree with you, Ed. I wouldn't go in and buy a whole bunch of stuff, but the cool thing is the stuff is cheap enough. So I bought a bunch of. I think I've got 5 of the T114s, and like I said, one of them is connected to my rooftop antenna. So it's fun and interesting. Let's put it that way. And the thing I like especially about the T114s. Is that it's an ARM-based processor, and so I have debuggers and tool chains that I can make work without any trouble at all. The ESP32 stuff is, in my mind, a real pain in the rear to debug, and its tool chains are, just not as much use. I've actually used the Nordic chip in the Meshtastic device. There's actually a prior version of it in some commercial stuff. And it's pretty nice. It works well. So anyway, I'll pass it back to Ed. I can go one more round at least.
Okay, WA6ED for the SOARA 10-meter net. Well, it's always fun. I learned a few things. I didn't know this stuff about the channels, so that was cool. Thank you, Dale. And definitely go to the West Coast website that I told you about earlier. You definitely want to read up on a few things, but yeah, Dale's right. It's not that expensive, and if I only got a couple $100 into buying radios, that's not too bad. But especially if I consider how much my R9 vertical cost me, and they gone up. Now you can't buy them, so that's no fun. Let's see if anybody wants to do a late check-in. This is WA6ED for the SOARA 10-meter net. If you'd like to do a late check-in, please call now. Okay, take it away, Steve, and we'll do a 73 round, WA6ED.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, Ed. This is Steve, KN6HI. So, let's say 73, and I'll go do some grocery shopping here. So, anyway, thanks for all the info, though. That's, interesting stuff. Oh, just by the way, I bought just one of those, HF receiver radios, a shortwave, kind of thing. And I took it with me on my bike ride this morning. I went out at 5:30 and went down by the ocean, and it was, I just wondered if I could hear anything. It does have sideband capability, and so I could get CW and whatnot, and, or at least so they say. I mean, it helped receive that. I guess if I'm receiving what they call normal, which is AM, I believe, I didn't hear much at all, but if I did have the sideband turned on, then I was hearing, I actually think I heard a JF3K, or I think it was a JF3K, the CW, coming across the Pacific. So, Japan. I think that was Japan, JF, right? Anyway, or maybe that was something else. I'll have to look it up. Anyway, thanks for the running the net, Ed, and I will pass it on to Dale. And say 73, everybody, to the two of us, to the two of you. Anyway, have a good one, and over to Dale. This is Steve, KN6HI.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you, Ed, for running the net, even though it's poor propagation and all that. It's, or I should say long propagation. Seems like short propagation is just okay. Long propagation is working just fine. I can hear Lou real clearly on the radio. He's about as clear as I could hear you or Chris or Steve. So yeah, Jeff, I think is Japan. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later, and whatever we can figure out, we'll do it. So talk to you again soon. 7-3 all is W6EDT. Back to Ed. So tie the bows on.
Okay, this is WA6ED for the SOARA 10-meter net. Well, thank you, Steve, and thank you, Dale, for participating. And yeah, it only takes a couple of people to make a net, and I don't much worry about it if we don't get a lot of participants anymore, because I get to talk about what I want to talk about more or less. So it's always fun. All right, thanks guys for participating today, and have a great Sunday. And this net is now closed. Return this frequency back to normal use, and WA6ED is clear.